Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the Noon News from Montana's news leader.
Good afternoon, and thanks so much for joining us here on the Noon News. I'm Samantha Sullivan. We could see the first vote today on a bipartisan compromise bill designed to fund more border security and avoid another government shutdown. Natalie Brand has more details from Capitol Hill.
CBS News has learned President Trump is likely to sign a bipartisan bill that would keep the government open and provide money for border security. But he could change his mind.
And we want to see what the final piece of legislation looks like. It's hard to say definitively whether or not the president's going to sign it until we know everything that's in it.
The president wanted $5.7 billion for a border wall. The congressional compromise gives him about a quarter of it, nearly $1.4 billion for fencing, 55 miles of it in the Rio Grande Valley. CBS News confirms the White House has completed its legal background work if the president decides to declare a national emergency to get more money for the border wall.
The president's got a number of options. He's going to keep all those on the table. We'll make a determination of what is necessary based on what the final piece of legislation looks like.
Lawmakers are still working on the final text of this legislation. A first vote in the House could now happen as early as tomorrow night.
We can't pass it until it's ready, and when it's ready, we'll be ready to pass it.
Congress must pass the legislation, and the president needs to sign it by Friday night to avoid another partial government shutdown. Natalie Brand, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
In other news this afternoon, it appears Montana Governor Steve Bullock is headed to Iowa later this week, which could signal a possible White House run. Online newspaper Politico shared the news Tuesday night, saying he's headed east as he considers a run for the Democratic presidential nomination. So far, at least 7 Democrats have thrown their hats in the ring. Your annual motor vehicle registration fee could be going up in an effort to support state parks and fishing access. The state Senate endorsed the bill, which raises the fee from $6 to $9 a year. Vehicle owners can opt out, but 77% of Montana's pay it, giving them year-round entrance to any of the 55 state parks. Opponents say they don't like the opt-out method of collecting the fee, calling it, quote, a little bit sneaky. The increase would raise about $2 million additional dollars each year. In other news this afternoon, a 48-year-old Great Falls woman has died after her car slid off a road in sub-zero temperatures and she was unable to enter her home. The Cascade County Sheriff's Office has identified the woman as Lisa Doty. Doty was driving home on Saturday when she slid off the road. Her keys were lost while she tried to dig out her car. A passerby gave Doty a ride to her home, but she could not get inside. She was found in her driveway the next morning. The sheriff's office says temperatures were below zero that night, and Doty was not dressed for the weather. Gallatin City County health officials now confirm there are 3 new cases of mumps in 2 different public schools in the area. Students most at risk for contracting mumps are being identified, and infection control measures recommended by the CDC are being implemented. Health experts say mumps can be serious, but the use of vaccines and disease control measures make the most serious complications very rare. Bozeman has quickly become one of the most expensive cities to live in the state. On Tuesday, a housing needs assessment for Bozeman and the surrounding communities was released, showing there is a lot of work to be done. The data shows multiple challenges facing the area, including stress at every level of housing, from rentals to starter homes and even senior living. One of the major problems contributing to the high cost of housing, construction of new homes is not moving fast enough to keep up with the area's rapid population growth.
We have a housing shortage and we have an attainable housing shortage as well, and we have to address those issues in combination. It has ripple effects throughout our entire community. It has economic effects, it has socioeconomic effects, it has demographic effects on who can afford to live here and where they're able to live.
Now the data will be analyzed by the Bozeman Affordable Housing Working Group, and they will work to create an action plan to hopefully resolve some of those issues. And now we'll turn things over to Ed in the Weather Center. Ed, with some snow on the way, it seems like the roads might be getting dicey here soon.
That's right. We've got a lot of problem areas now, and more it will develop as we get through the day and overnight. A huge portion of central and western Montana under winter weather advisories, which is automatic travel problems, and then even heavier snow and some of the winter storm warnings, where it really started to pile up in northwest Montana, and it's continuing to snow. We'll have another round along the way. So make sure you use a lot of safe travel techniques and make sure that just the simple things are taken care of, like your tires. And with the heavier snow, some of it's been blowing off recently. Remember, you might more likely have to scrape and perhaps sweep the snow off. We'll have more on the weather coming up in just a few minutes.
Said. From the University of Montana campus, another drop in enrollment, but this time there's a silver lining. Enrollment officials say more Montana students are opting to stay at Montana longer. UM says there was a 2.9% drop in enrollment from fall to spring, but numbers also show an increase of 1.7% in students choosing to stay with UM compared to last year. Well, coming up here on the Noon News, illegal drugs being pumped into our communities. We take an in-depth look at what law enforcement is doing to help combat that problem. But first, snow expected all around the state. Ed will join us with a statewide forecast right after the break.
You're watching MTN News with Samantha Sullivan. Storm Tracker weather with Ed McIntosh, and farm and ranch news from the Northern Ag Network. This is the Noon News on Q2, Montana's news leader.